Welcome back, everybody, to the NCAA Next Up Dynasty here on NCAA Football 14. We are getting close to the end of season number 3. The only thing standing in the way of the college football playoff are the conference championship games, which we'll be going over today. Last episode, we went through the final 3 weeks of the year, and they were really exciting. Headlined by a triple overtime battle between Duke and Virginia Tech, we had some crazy games and some crazy finishes to all of these conference races. We now know which teams are in the conference championships, and these are the last 7 games that we will get to see before you guys will get to vote on who makes the college football playoff, along with all of the other major awards and whatnot. For those who don't remember, the Power 5 conference champions, along with the highest Group 5 conference champion, get an automatic bid into the 12-team college football playoff. Florida will play against Alabama in the SEC championship. Navy and Virginia Tech will face off in the ACC. In the Big Ten, Ohio State will face off against USC, who beat Notre Dame to get that spot in the Big Ten West. In the Big 12, Baylor will face off against Cincinnati. And then in the Pac-12, we will have a rematch of last year's game between Cal and Washington. The winners of those 5 games will automatically go to the playoff. Along with that, the highest Group 5 team will get in as well. That'll be Middle Tennessee State if they win. If not, it could be someone like Bowling Green from the MAC. The other conferences do not have a conference championship, so the official winners are UTEP, Idaho, and Texas State. There are some tiebreakers and whatnot, but ultimately these are the 3 teams at the top, so I assume they are the conference winners, and obviously the other 7 conferences have conference championship games. This is what the AP poll looks like 1 week before college football playoff voting. There's obviously going to be a lot of movement with these conference championship games, and it's going to be really fascinating to see what happens today. Which 6 teams will clinch spots in the playoff, and ultimately which bubble teams will get in, which we will find out in a couple episodes from now. Teams that are currently on the bubble who do not have a conference championship game, like Georgia, Oregon, Oklahoma, Duke, schools like that, they are probably rooting for some of the higher ranked teams. For example, Ohio State over USC and Navy over Virginia Tech, because the bubble teams are going to have a better shot of getting into the playoff if more bubble teams lose. Say a team like Ohio State loses, they're probably still going to get an at-large spot, and that means one of the bubble teams ultimately who would have gone in ends up falling out. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get this show on the road. The final 7 games before the college football playoff is announced. We'll start with the American Athletic Conference Championship between UAB and Middle Tennessee State. The American Conference was quietly really good. They currently have 5 teams ranked in the top 25. The SEC is the only conference with more, being 6. Middle Tennessee State has been the best team in this conference throughout the year, and along with Michigan, the Blue Raiders are the only team to make the college football playoff 2 seasons in a row. Michigan's obviously not going to make it this year because they're only 6-6. So if Middle Tennessee State wins today, they'll be the highest ranked Group 5 team, which means they will automatically go to the playoff. The only team standing in their way is UAB. The Blazers average less passing yards per game than anybody in college football. That's because they're a ground and pound squad led by running back Higashioka Miyamoto, and their defense is one of the best in the country as well. If UAB wins this game, they may end up being the highest ranked Group 5 team in the country, meaning they do have a shot to get into the playoff if they win today. They've got some impressive wins. Their only losses are to Middle Tennessee State earlier in the season in a blowout, along with Texas Tech, and since then they have not lost. As for Middle Tennessee State, the Blue Raiders have been the model of consistency throughout this series. In the 3 seasons we've gone through, they've only lost 2 regular season games. They've made it to the playoffs both times, and last year they made it all the way to the Final Four before losing it to the Clemson Tigers in what ended up being a very close game. This Middle Tennessee State team is the best offensive team they've ever had, led by senior quarterback Drain Ignatius. And for most of the season, they looked invincible once again. In Week 13, they got blown out by Southern Miss. They looked vulnerable, and a lot of their weaknesses were exposed. in that matchup. But they have beaten some good teams this year. They blew out UAB on the road earlier in the season. Now they get to play against UAB at home. As we look at the team stats, Middle Tennessee State outscores their opponent by nearly 22 points per game, and they are certainly the favorite to win this one. But UAB's a tough opponent. They've been playing better football than anybody in the American Athletic Conference over the last 5 to 6 weeks, and they have the #1 scoring defense in the country. The pick'em seems to be very confident with Middle Tennessee State, as the Blue Raiders are getting nearly 84% of the votes, being 10.5-point favorites. We'll see if Middle Tennessee State can clinch their 3rd consecutive college football playoff appearance in the snow, or if UAB can get the upset. Here's Middle Tennessee State's first offensive play of the game, and it's a good one. Ignatius connects with Chris Curry for a 74-yard touchdown, and the Blue Raiders start off quickly with a score. Might be a long day for UAB if they don't figure out how to stop senior quarterback Drain Ignatius, and right as I say that, he gets intercepted on Middle Tennessee State's following drive. A big turnover by UAB. It's Terrell Fuller who picks off the pass, and we'll see if the Blazers can capitalize. On 2nd and 6, it's going to be a QB fumble. He was trying to pitch it to Higashioka, and the pitch was offline. That's like one of those option plays that I always used to run in the Westlake Dynasty back in the day that I would always mess up on. So Middle Tennessee State would capitalize off the turnover. They'd bring it all the way to the goal line, and senior running back Barrington Britt would pound it in for a touchdown. So far, so good for Middle Tennessee State. They lead 14-0. UAB would answer back, however. Javarius Bonaromas would score a rushing touchdown of his own, and UAB would make it 14-7. Middle Tennessee State would drive all the way down the field. They'd have it back on the goal line with another opportunity to assert their control and make it a 2-score game, but Ignatius would be intercepted again. All 10 of his passes have been caught in this game. 8 by his teammates and 2 by the defense. Fred Turner, the true freshman, picks him off. UAB would march all the way down the field despite really bad field position, and they would tie it up with a touchdown to the senior running back Higashioka Miyamoto, the engine and the horsepower of this football team. UAB's making it a ball game as we are tied at 14 at half. Middle Tennessee State dominated early, but UAB's going to make this a ball game. Let's go to the second half now. UAB with possession. Their offense really seems to be finding a rhythm. Here's one of their other running backs, not Miyamoto, but Kyle Singleton, who gets 16 yards on the option. UAB is your traditional option team. They run a similar offense to that of some of the military schools, as they would kick a field goal, and this Dragon is happy that they take their first lead of the game. Let's go to the following UAB possession. The Blazers have all the momentum right now. They're really playing well, but we've got another fumble. UAB picks it up, but that could have been costly. Bonaromas did not do a good job of protecting the football there. On to the fourth quarter now. Middle Tennessee State needs to get some action going with a big run. How about this play? Drain Ignatius on the read option takes it all the way for a 50-plus yard rushing touchdown, and Middle Tennessee State is back on top. The Blue Raiders have been so close to winning the national championship 2 years in a row. They're not going to let UAB beat them here. Following possession, really trying to get the ground game going. Look at Barrington Britt powering through defenders as he gets 26 yards. If Middle Tennessee State scores a touchdown, they'll find themselves in a really good spot. 3rd and 1, Ignatius keeps it. He's just standing there. Was he constipated? Did he have to take a deuce? I don't know, but Jason Alvarez is there to stop him. And Middle Tennessee State kicks a field goal. They will be up by 7, assuming it's good, which it is. So UAB's got one more opportunity to look to tie the game. On 1st down, nearing the goal line, it's a QB keeper. Touchdown, UAB. Javarius Bonaromas does it again, 24-24. Middle Tennessee State will now have another opportunity to look to take the lead and potentially win this game for good and cement their stop into the playoff. On 1st down, Ignatius is intercepted. His 3rd turnover of the game, and UAB's got a shot to win it. A costly turnover by Ignatius. That's Terrell Fuller with his 2nd of the game. With only a minute and a half left on the clock, UAB, if they're smart with it, can end it. Big throw on 3rd down from Bonaromas over to Higashioka Miyamoto. He'll put UAB in field goal range, but they're not thinking 3. I think they're thinking 7. 3rd and 8, a minute to go. Bonaroma's up the middle again, and that'll bring it to the 5. It's White, the true freshman tight end. UAB is chewing clock. They can just taste it. 2nd and goal. The fullback, Walter Cannon, is the hero, and UAB is ahead with about 20 seconds to go. If Middle Tennessee State does in fact lose, this will be their 2nd loss, and I don't think there's a real way for a Group 5 school with 2 losses to get an at-large bid, so they need a miracle. Ignatius on the final play of the game connects with Luther Lexeris for a touchdown. Are you kidding me? Middle Tennessee State ties it at the buzzer. This game looked like it was over. Middle Tennessee State had just been handed their 2nd loss of the year and looked like they were out of playoff contention, basically. But no, Luther Lexeris scores a game-tying touchdown at the end of regulation, and we are headed to overtime. Wow, what a finish to regulation for Middle Tennessee State, but they've still got to get some momentum continuing to roll and beat UAB to put themselves into the playoff for good. On 3rd and 10, Javarius Bonaromas looks to throw it, and he's intercepted. Connor D'Angelo picks it off with room ahead of him, breaks a tackle, and he's still on his feet down the field, pushed out and around midfield. A huge turnover by D'Angelo, the biggest defensive play of the game, and Middle Tennessee State can win it. Ignatius walks in for a touchdown, and in miracle fashion, Middle Tennessee State wins. They clinch the American Athletic Conference, and more importantly, they will officially go back to the college football playoff for a 3rd consecutive season. Wow, what an ending to this game. And as I said right before their game-tying touchdown at the buzzer, if they lose, I don't think they would have gotten enough votes to get an at-large bid. You've got all those 2-loss teams in the Big Ten and the ACC and the SEC who probably deserve it more than a 2-loss Group 5 school who lost both of their games close to the end of the season. Drain Ignatius made some big-time plays, including the game-tying touchdown to Luther Lexeris. He's got to do a better job of controlling the football, though. He was intercepted 3 times, but overall he played pretty well. They ran the ball effectively. Barrington Britt and Drain Ignatius were both great. Ignatius, of course, with the game-winning rushing touchdown. In terms of receivers, Luther Lexeris was the big standout with the game-tying touchdown, and Chris Curry as well was very good too. Middle Tennessee State's defense was not great, but when they needed to get a stop in overtime, they did. I commend UAB. This is a great effort. They almost got the job done. They almost gave themselves an opportunity to be the highest-ranked Group 5 team in the country, meaning that they could have gone to the playoff. They ran the ball really well, but they're just too one-dimensional of an offense, and they only gave Miyamoto 13 carries, which I think is a mistake. They should have given him the ball more. I think their offense could have done a little bit more, and that probably would have been enough to win the game. So I think they kind of mismanaged their offense, despite scoring 31 points against a really tough defense. Let's move on to the SEC Championship now. Probably the game that a lot of people are most intrigued by. Number 1, Florida, taking on number 2, Alabama. Both teams are 11-1. Both teams are pretty much a shoo-in to make the college football playoff, no matter what. Unless one of these teams loses by 100, I think the loser of this game will still certainly get an at-large bid into the playoff. Not only will the winner of this game get an automatic spot, but they'll have the inside track on being the number 1 overall seed, especially depending on what happens in the Ohio State game, as I think the Buckeyes are the only other team who's got a real shot to be the number 1 overall seed, along with the winner of this game. The ACC might be a little bit more top-heavy, but the SEC is still by far the most talented conference in the country, led by the Florida Gators and Heisman-contending quarterback Ernie Capellar, who has really elevated his game, not only as a Heisman contender, but also looking like a first-round pick. They've got weapons on the offensive side of the ball, and their defense is very, very solid as well. I think Florida has not only been the best team in the SEC throughout the season, but arguably the best team in the entire country. And there are not many, if any, schools who've got a better chance of taking it all the way, in my opinion, than the Florida Gators. They beat Alabama all the way back in Week 1, 27-21, and their only loss is all the way back in Week 3 on the road against a really good Oklahoma team who has a real shot of making the playoff themselves. Florida has been perfect since then. They blew out Florida State on the road, and now they get to face off against the number 2 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. Quarterback Troy Davenport took a step up, but this team is all about the ground game. Heisman contending running back Darius Coley and sophomore Tyon Christopher lead the engine of this offense. Their defense is very, very good as well. And if somebody's going to stop Ernie Capellar, Alabama's got one of the best opportunities to do it. They've got playmakers in the front. They've got a great pass rush. They lost to Florida all the way back in week 1, but they have not lost since then. They've won 11 consecutive games, which is tied with Cal for the longest win streak in the entire country. They've got some big-time signature wins, but they also have a lot of close wins against not-so-good teams. Their win over Oklahoma in Week 13 ultimately was enough to win the Big Ten West and bring them into this game. Alabama has a point differential at around 12, while Florida's is close to 15. So because of that, I do view the Gators as the slight favorite in this game. However, the majority of the pick'em seem to roll with the Tide. Alabama got around 55% of the vote, while Florida would get 45%. I think the Gators are the slightly better team, and I think they've got a slightly better shot of winning this game, but Alabama's very good in their own rights. Here's the Crimson Tide offense featuring sophomore quarterback Troy Davenport, one of the better scrambling quarterbacks in the country. Gets around 15 yards. If Alabama wins this game, it'll be because they control the line of scrimmage and they continue to dominate running the ball. The Crimson Tide would settle for a field goal as Freddie Furkey would deliver it up through the upright. Alabama leads 3-0. Here's the Florida offense featuring Ernie Capellar, a possible Heisman contender who's got one more opportunity to show why he deserves to win the award. And he's got a great running back by his side with Todrick Suggs, who gets 31 yards. He may not be as good as Elijah Bryant, Florida's running back last year, who of course now plays for the Titans, but Suggs is pretty good in his own right. Ernie Capellar breaking tackles. He'll find the end zone for a touchdown, and the Florida Gators take the lead as it's now 7-3. A nice play there for the Gators, who get it back here in the second quarter, looking to possibly extend their lead. On third down, Capellar takes a shot, and it is intercepted. Ayo Oguga, the All-American corner, with his third interception of the season. Oguga's one of the most talented corners in the country, and he's a guy who could and probably will be a first-round pick in a couple of years from now, forcing a huge turnover through the Alabama defense. We'll see what the Crimson Tide can do here off of the turnover. Their offense has been pretty lackluster today as Davenport goes short for his number 1 wideout, Khalil Hassan. They got to get Hassan the ball a lot today. He's a dynamic player. On that throw, however, look at Troy Davenport. He took a hit from number 3, linebacker Giacomo Vivaro, the All-American, and Davenport is down on the ground in some pain. Alabama's going to have to turn it to 5-star true freshman Dasani Madison to potentially win this game for them. On third down, he goes for a short screen for Coley, who loses a yard, wrapped up by, once again, Giacomo Vivaro, a possible first-round pick in this year's draft. Not a great start for Madison as Florida gets the ball back. On first down, it's a handoff up the middle. Here's Todrick Suggs once again with a big play, gaining 18. Florida has ran the ball really well so far. Capellar's made good plays with his legs, so has Suggs. The Gators would kick a field goal to take a 10-3 lead, but they would not be up for long. Here's Coleslaw Appleby taking it all the way for a 79-yard touchdown. What a throw by the freshman Dasani Madison, who's going to have to play for the rest of this game as Troy Davenport ended up suffering a minor concussion. His day is done. So we are tied at 10, late in the half, under a minute to go. On 3rd and 2, Capellar tries to keep it himself, but he is sacked by the sophomore pass rusher Jewel Chantel, his team leading 7th sack of the year. Florida would kick a field goal, and they take a 13-10 lead going into halftime. It's been a tough physical game so far. Neither offense has really bursted onto the scene, but these defenses look both pretty good. On 3rd and 8, what a throw to Chris Gentry, who gains 21. Big-time pass by Deontay Harris. Not Ernie Capellar, who suffered a minor injury, but as you can see on the bottom, he'll be good to return to the game pretty soon. Florida would be unable to punch it in and score a touchdown, so they'll have to settle for another field goal. It feels like the Gators have had control throughout most of this game. They're only up by 6, and a touchdown for Alabama would put the Tide ahead. First down here for the Crimson Tide. The true freshman, Madison, looks to throw it, and he is intercepted. Giacomo Vivaro makes another play. He has been all over the field tonight, looking every part of a future first-round pick. Vivara was the guy last year for Florida who had that huge pick six late in the game in the quarterfinals against Ohio State at the Rose Bowl. He looks even better than he did a season ago, which says a whole lot. Florida's going to look to capitalize off the turnover, and they will, as Capillar connects with Derico Callaway in the back of the end zone for a touchdown. Nice drive by Ernie Capillar, who is playing through a bruised ankle. Florida would get the ball in the fourth quarter, and they would look to ice the game as Rudy Burns, the power back, punches it in. And all of a sudden, the Gators take a big lead, 30-10. Not a lot of time for Alabama to make a big comeback. Madison's going to look to make a play as he connects with Abdu Draba, the freshman wideout, for a score. Alabama trails now by 13 points. They've still got a long ways to go, however, and they ultimately would not be able to come back. So Florida takes home the SEC championship 30-17. Florida wins the SEC for the first time in this series, and for a second consecutive season, the Gators are headed back to the playoff, where at minimum, I assume they'll be one of the top 2 or 3 seeds overall, possibly the number 1 seed with a record of 12-1 and winning the best conference in the country. I thought Dasani Madison played pretty well despite the injury with Davenport, who will be healthy going forward for Alabama. Despite losing today, the Crimson Tide still finished 11-2. They still won the SEC West. I have a hard time thinking Alabama won't get one of the at-large bids, so I think there's a good shot we'll still be seeing the Crimson Tide in the playoff, although they ran the ball horribly today. Florida figured out how to exploit their weaknesses and focus on stopping their strengths. So I think that says a lot about the coaching staff of the Florida Gators. Their head coach, Khalil Onobanjo, used to play defensive back in the NFL with the Jacksonville Jaguars, so he knows a thing or two about defense. Ernie Capillar was not great, but not bad either. Kind of like last year in the playoff. He was good enough, but there still feels like a little bit more left to be desired. And that's my one question with the Florida Gators. Can Ernie Capillar make big plays in big games to help them win a championship? And if he can, I think Florida might be the team to beat. Next up, we'll quickly go through the MAC championship between Toledo and Bowling Green. Had Middle Tennessee State lost, Bowling Green would have been in line to be the highest-ranked Group 5 conference champion, but with Middle Tennessee State winning, the only way Bowling Green can get a playoff spot is with an at-large bid. Unless they win this game 100-0, I don't think that's overly likely. Bowling Green is 11-1, but even if they win this game, I don't see them getting voted in over schools like Alabama, Georgia, Oregon, etc. Their opponent is the 6-6 Toledo Rockets, who snuck their way into this game, but I think Toledo's a little bit more talented than their record suggests, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They've got some really good players, including guys like Quandre Carabex and Colin McCain. They've got some good players defensively, but they're not a great team. They only went 500 this year. The MAC East Division was pretty weak, and Toledo was able to slide into the conference championship with a 5-4 in-conference record. But again, I think they're more talented than their record suggests, and I think they really could give the Bowling Green Falcons a run through their money. Bowling Green's got some question marks because they've had a lot of injury issues at the quarterback position. Elijah Ebike was the original starter. He got hurt early in the year. Alex Ashley came in. He played pretty well, but he got hurt during the final game of the year. Travion Macklin had to come in. So as of now, Alex Ashley, who's been their starter for most of the year, certainly will not play today. Elijah Ebike, their original starter, is probable, so it will most likely be him playing quarterback in this one. Regardless of who plays QB, they're going to have to really rely on the ground game. Micah McDuffie, the junior running back, is spectacular. They have a great tight end with Isaiah Deloach, who looks like he could be a high NFL draft pick in the future, and their defense is pretty solid as well. But again, since they can't grab the automatic Group 5 spot, the only way they can make the college football playoff is with an at-large bid. And again, I think there are 6+ teams who are not going to win their conferences who are ultimately better than Bowling Green. So Bowling Green has to absolutely dominate today for them to get any real consideration. But Bowling Green still knows what's at stake, and they're certainly going to give it their all. As for Toledo, they come in with a negative point differential on the season, but Toledo doesn't have anything to lose here. So why not give it all you got and see if you can get the upset? Bowling Green is only favored by 7.5. I really do think Toledo's going to make this a game. Bowling Green still ended up getting a majority of the pick'em vote, but it would be Toledo who would score first as Jonas Bass, the backup running back, would punch it in, and Toledo will strike 7-0. Here's the Bowling Green offense. This is Elijah Ebike, the junior quarterback who has not played since like week 4 with a big gain of over 50 yards. Welcome back to the lineup, Elijah. Obviously, he has not played in a while because of his injury, but with Alex Ashley, the backup quarterback, getting hurt, and Ebike being, it seems like, clearly healthy enough to play, Bowling Green's trotting him out there, and he looks good. The Falcons would ultimately tie it as Micah McDuffie, the All-American running back, would score. Another guy who I think is going to be a really good pro at the next level. We are tied at 7. Toledo has it here late in the first quarter here at Ford Field, home of the Lions, is Demario Tate, the sophomore quarterback. I don't know what he was trying to do there. He tossed it backwards. Nobody was behind him. I don't know what he was thinking. Did he bet the Bowling Green 7.5 line? That would be my only guess. Bowling Green would only be able to score a field goal, so now it's 10-7. Toledo has it back. Tate on 3rd and 7 is sacked, and that'll end the drive. A big play by Michael Foster to bring him down. Bowling Green's offense would do nothing, so Toledo would get it back here in the second quarter. A big-time throw by Tate, and a big-time play after the catch. That's Oliver Perry with a gain of 51, and Toledo's moving it down the field. Can the Rockets take the lead? As on 2nd down, it's R.J. Johnson, the lead running back. He is in for a 16-yard score. I told you guys Toledo was going to make this a game, as it's now 14-10. Bowling Green's got some damage control to do with their all-orange jerseys. Do you like that jersey combo that they have? Let me know in the comments. It's certainly a creative jersey combo, put it that way. Gordon Thomas does not get the first down. Bowling Green would kick another field goal. Toledo leads by 1 here on the goal line as Tate gets picked off. The Rockets really had a big opportunity to extend their lead, but instead they turn it over, and a big return after the interception as Bowling Green makes it all the way to the 25. Robert Hayford was the guy who made the play, and then on 1st and goal, Bowling Green can take the lead. Wide open in the flat is Micah McDuffie, and he'll capitalize with a 6-yard score, and Bowling Green is back up ahead 20-14. We'll see if Toledo can do anything here before the end of the half, as on 1st down, it's a screen for R.J. Johnson. He's got blocks down the field with a nice gain of 19. This is turning out to be a pretty entertaining game. Toledo would kick a field goal on that last drive as it's 20-17 going into halftime. We'll see if Bowling Green can assert their dominance here in the second half, as they would start with the ball. They march down the field, and now with an opportunity to make it a 2-score game, they would hand it off to Micah McDuffie, who's now got the hat trick, his 3rd all-purpose touchdown of the game. I had high expectations for McDuffie today, and I am not disappointed. The Bowling Green defense would get a huge sack there from Michael Foster, his 2nd of the game. Right when Toledo started to do some damage, they lose momentum. They would kick a field goal, and it's now 20-27. Going into the 4th quarter, the backup running back for Bowling Green, Anthony King, would punch it in with a touchdown. They now lead by 2 scores. Bowling Green's now going to look to finish it off here on their next possession, up by 14 points on a 3rd and 7. Elijah Ebike looks to throw it, and he connects in the back of the end zone with Isaiah DeLoach, the All-American tight end, and that'll do it. Bowling Green wins it 41-20. It was a pretty competitive game throughout the first half, but Bowling Green showed us in the second half that they are absolutely the better team. I don't think they did enough to put themselves ahead of some of those bubble teams for the playoff, like Georgia, Oregon, Duke, and Oklahoma, despite having a better record than all of those teams. But you still got to commend Bowling Green for going undefeated in conference, 9-0 in the regular season, 10-0 if you include this game. As we take a look at the numbers, Elijah Ebike was really efficient today. He did not miss a throw. 11 of 11, 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. Since he's injured, he couldn't really make all of his normal throws. So Bowling Green pretty much just had him run a lot of short passes, and he did not miss a single throw. Although, really, the story of the game was how well they ran the ball. Ebike ran it well, along with Micah McDuffie. The two of them combined for nearly 340 rushing yards apiece, just ramming it through the Toledo defense. Bowling Green was just a tougher, more physical, dynamic football team today, and defensively they were great in the second half, only allowing 3 points. Toledo did make this game competitive in the first half. I thought Demario Tate, the sophomore, he's going to be a future NFL prospect, made some good plays today. But Toledo's just the inferior team, and that really showed in the second half. Still a solid season for Toledo. Most of their key players will be back next year, so I really think they can win 8 or 9 games and be a real threat in the MAC. Let's go to the ACC Championship now. We've got 4 more games left today. The winner of these 4 games are all going to the playoff, and that starts with this one between Virginia Tech and Navy. The ACC has been pretty much a 5-horse race this year with Florida State, Clemson, and Duke as well. Those 3 schools are certainly going to be bubble teams for the college football playoff. Duke beat Virginia Tech in an overtime thriller late in the season. Duke was supposed to be here, but after losing in Week 14 to UNC, Virginia Tech gets the spot instead. They're led by junior quarterback DeAndre Jones, who looks like he could be one of the highest quarterbacks off the board in next year's draft. And Virginia Tech's defense is pretty solid as well, although not great. The ACC is one of the most highest scoring conferences in the country. It's pretty much what the Big 12 is now in real life, but a little bit more talented, I would say. Virginia Tech, I really thought they were not going to win their division for most of the year. It really seemed like Duke was the better team. Duke beat Virginia Tech, but Duke had some misfortunes late, and Virginia Tech's going to look to capitalize. I think they match up quite well with the Navy midshipmen, who are currently 11-1. I'm just not sold on this Navy team at all. We saw them play against Army last week, and that game went all the way to overtime. I just don't think Navy's style of offense, particularly, is what's going to win you a national championship. They don't throw the ball a whole lot. They're an option team. Their offense is very similar to that of Notre Dame last year, and we saw what happened when they got in the playoffs, which was getting absolutely exposed. On the other hand, Navy's 11-1. They've been dominant in conference. Their only loss is back in Week 5 against a really good Florida State team, and they've got some signature wins. They beat Clemson, they beat Notre Dame, and they're 11-1. So there's a reason why they have such a good record. Defense is the strong suit of this Navy team. They have one of the best Power 5 defenses in the country, largely because the offense keeps the defense off the field. They have the #1 run game in the country, but even so, I'm still not totally convinced that they can hang with some of the big guns at the top because of their lack of ability to throw the ball. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they match up with a team like Virginia Tech today. Virginia Tech is getting more votes in the pick'em despite Navy being favored. I honestly like that upset pick. I think Virginia Tech really could get the job done here against Navy. Nonetheless, the winner of this game will go into the playoff and has a really good shot of being one of the top 4 seeds and getting a first-round bye. DeAndre Jones on the first offensive play of scrimmage gets a huge run of 32 yards. Virginia Tech would score a field goal on that drive, and on the following possession, they would make sure to find the end zone. Jones would connect with Rymel Godfrey for a score. Virginia Tech looks good early as the Hokies lead 10-0. Navy's offense has not done a whole lot, and it's not going to get any better here as Chuck Burton fumbles it on the option, and it's picked up by Virginia Tech. These option teams just turn the ball over a little bit too much, and to make matters worse for Navy, look at the bottom. Their star running back, Torian Wilson, is injured and will be out for a few weeks. So things are really going rough for Navy. Virginia Tech kicks a field goal. They lead 13-0. Navy has it back. They have not been able to throw the ball today, as seen there, and they're going to have a lot harder of a time running it with Torian Wilson, by far their best player, out for the rest of the game. Virginia Tech would get it back and kick another field goal to take a 16-0 lead. Virginia Tech's had no problem scoring today, but Navy has done a good job of keeping them out of the end zone. Nonetheless, Virginia Tech looks far and away the better team. They lead 16-0. Navy just looks completely overmatched. My fears for Navy are coming true. Their offensive skill set does not match up with these really good teams. Finally, Chuck Burton makes his first big throw of the game, connecting with John Dorsey for a gain of 20. 3rd and 7. Burton's going to look to keep it himself, but he's going to fumble it once again. Another turnover by Chuck Burton, his second lost fumble of the game. Virginia Tech, again, would not be able to do a whole lot and have to settle for another field goal as they lead 19-0. I'm really not that impressed by Virginia Tech. I think this is more so Navy playing really poorly and constantly giving Virginia Tech good field position off of stalled drives or punts. Another stalled drive for Navy. Burton is sacked by Reggie Mooney, and Virginia Tech would ultimately settle for another field goal. Wash, rinse, repeat. The Hokies aren't playing bad. They're doing enough to put themselves up by a lot, but I really think this game is just Navy consistently shooting themselves in the foot. Here in the 4th quarter, Virginia Tech would finally get back in the end zone as DeAndre Jones would run it in himself. Virginia Tech has not made a lot of big-time throws, but they haven't needed to, winning by the final score of 29-0. This was an ugly game. There were not many high points. I think the two stories here were Virginia Tech completely out-coaching Navy, and Navy just playing horribly. I understand Navy has 11 wins and they have a good resume, but they do not look like they belong in the college football playoff. They can't throw the ball. Their star running back is going to be injured for multiple weeks, and without him, they showed that their offense is nothing. This team needs Torian Wilson so badly, and with Wilson out, I don't know what they're going to be able to do. Chuck Burton had 30 carries for 40 yards, and I think a lot of that is because of some of those bad option plays and sacks. But even so, this offense is just so one-dimensional. They could not get out of their own way in this game, which ultimately costed them. Virginia Tech's defensive coordinator did a great job of game planning. Virginia Tech knew all Navy was going to do is try to run the ball in the option, and Virginia Tech was able to stop that with ease. On offense, their game plan was just to be smart and steady. DeAndre Jones has one of the best arms in the country, but he did not make a lot of big-time throws. Instead, they just went for a lot of short passes, and they ran the ball really well. I think Virginia Tech is absolutely deserving of winning this conference championship and making it into the college football playoff, but they did luck out facing off against a Navy team who looked very unprepared. Let's go on to the Big Ten championship now. Who will join Middle Tennessee State, Florida, and Virginia Tech in the college football playoff? Will it be USC or will it be Ohio State? The Buckeyes have a real shot to be the number 1 overall seed, and even if they lose today, I think they will get one of the at-large playoff spots, so that means all those teams on the bubble, Georgia, Oregon, Oklahoma, Duke, etc., they are rooting for Ohio State today, because if USC wins, USC gets an automatic spot, and Ohio State's going to probably find their way in as well, so one of those bubble teams is going to end up missing the cut. This USC team absolutely has what it takes to win this game. They've got plenty of talent on offense, led by senior quarterback Scotty Kimbrell. They've got plenty of weapons, including Squeezy Pryor-Escobar, the true freshman cousin of former USC wide receiver Hot Rod Pryor. Their defense is really solid as well, and they have only lost one game since week 2. If you look at USC's resume, they're a really, really strong team, and I think that even if they lose today, they do have a case to get one of the at-large spots. They lost to a bad Indiana team by 3, but they beat Michigan State on the road. They beat Oregon on the road. They did lose to Stanford, but then they beat Notre Dame to clinch a spot here in the conference championship against the Buckeyes. Ohio State was my preseason pick to win the national championship, and that has not wavered. You can make the argument that they've been the best team in the country this year, and depending on how they play today, if they win convincingly, they could be the number 1 seed over a team like Florida. Puma Whitlock, the quarterback, has been a legitimate Heisman contending player. Running back Mookie Davis, in my opinion, is the most talented running back in the country, and their defense is phenomenal as well. This is pretty much the same Ohio State team from last year, but with a significantly better quarterback, which is why I was so high on them going into the season, and they have absolutely proved me right. The Buckeyes have not lost a single game in conference yet. Their only loss was in overtime by 3 to a very pesky Virginia team. I really think this Ohio State team is as good as it gets, and USC is going to have a big challenge. Ohio State beat Oregon last year in the Big Ten championship, so we'll see if the Buckeyes can win their 2nd consecutive conference title and get into the college football playoff. Ohio State is the 2nd-ranked scoring offense in the country and the 5th-ranked scoring defense for an overall point differential of 26, which is higher than any team in college football. So USC's got their hands full, and again, I think USC is good enough to hang with Ohio State, but I don't know if anybody can beat the Buckeyes right now, so it is going to be a big challenge. The Pick'em seems to agree with that sentiment, as Ohio State is getting 84% of the vote. But USC is ranked in the top 10 for a reason. They're 10-2, and I think they're as good as their record suggests. USC is looking to make some plays early. Here's Monty Bradley on the screen, takes it all the way for a score. A quick start for the Trojans, who are fighting onwards to an early 7-0 lead. This Ohio State team scores more points than just about anybody, and it's largely because of sophomore quarterback Puma Whitlock. The Heisman contender breaks off a 51-yard run for a score. Puma Whitlock is dynamic on the ground. He's got a great arm, and he's got 2 more years of eligibility left. Despite Ohio State's strong offensive start, USC really looks like they're going to match them toe for toe. Kimbrell throws his second touchdown of the game, hauled in by true freshman Tay Devine, who's been one of the best freshman players in the country, period. 14-7. Now in the second quarter, Ohio State looking to tie the game up on 3rd and 5. It's a screen for Mookie Davis, and he loses 3. A big defensive stop by the Trojans. So they would force an Ohio State field goal, making it 14-10. USC would get the ball back, march down the field, and look for a field goal of their own, as it is now 17-10. It really feels like USC has control early, and even if the Trojans don't win this game, they're going to position themselves well to get an at-large bid if they continue to play well and not make plays like that. Kimbrell throws a turnover in the red zone. Can you catch? With the interception for Ohio State, he makes a nice catch, get it, in the end zone, and Ohio State's going to look to capitalize, which they would not because of the poor field position. So USC is going to get another opportunity here late in the first half, as on 3rd down, Kimbrell launches a strike. It's caught by the true freshman tight end, Squeezy, Pryor Escobar, who gets it into the red zone. Following play, Kimbrell connects with Tay Devine, his second receiving touchdown of the game. Don't look now, but the Trojans lead by 14. 24-10 is your score. Ohio State's going to have a late opportunity to score. They don't have a lot of time here on the clock, about 30 seconds. On 2nd and 9, Puma Whitlock takes a shot downfield. It's caught by Matthew Mountbatten, and he takes it for a touchdown. And the Buckeyes are right back in the ball game as they only trail by 7. USC is going to look to score here late in the first half. They only have 7 seconds, though. Kimbrell takes a shot downfield. It's caught by Caden Morgan for a touchdown. Scotty Kimbrell is balling right now. He's thrown 4 touchdowns in the first half. USC looks like the real deal. They lead 31-17, and Ohio State could be in some danger if they want to win this conference. On 2nd down, USC's offense gets right back to work. It's Tay Devine, once again, who brings it inside the 5. USC would be unable to score a touchdown, but they'll settle for a field goal instead, and the Trojans lead big, 34-17, in clear control of this game, but they are not done yet. On the following possession, Kimbrell would look to extend the lead, and he does with his 5th touchdown of the game, as it's hauled in by Lance Scott. The Buckeyes are down by 24. They are in a lot of trouble. They've got to get something going quick, and that's not going to help. Puma Whitlock is sacked on 3rd down by Johnny Machado, the big defensive tackle. Let's go to the following Ohio State possession in the 4th quarter. Puma Whitlock makes a big run on a 4th and inches to get the Buckeyes inside the 5. Ohio State's running no huddle, trying to get back quickly. As on 1st and goal, Whitlock keeps it himself and is in for a score. Ohio State's got to start going for 2, however, because if they get it, they can make it a 2-score game. The 2-point try, Puma Whitlock connects in the back of the end zone with Matthew Mountbatten. It's 41-25. In the following Ohio State possession, they bring it back into the red zone, and Puma Whitlock would connect with Matthew Mountbatten once again for another score. If they get this 2-point conversion, they're only down by 1 possession. Puma Whitlock looking to throw it, and it is caught by Trey Miller. Don't call it a comeback, but Ohio State is roaring back. USC's offense has laid an egg here in the 4th quarter as Ohio State gets a stop, and now the Ohio State Buckeyes can tie the game with a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. They've got to get this 4th down, though, with the conference championship on the line. Whitlock looks to throw it under pressure, and he is sacked. That was Johnny Machado again making the play, and despite a valiant effort from Ohio State here in the 4th quarter, this game is over. A major upset in the Big Ten Championship. USC with a shocking win, 41-33, and the Trojans are the next team to automatically put themselves into the college football playoff. So first of all, shout out to USC for a big win. They took fate into their own hands and capitalized. Quarterback Scotty Kimbrell was awesome in this game. And if USC can play like this against such a great team like Ohio State, they can beat anybody. I thought Puma Whitlock played pretty well. I wouldn't say he was great, but he was good, and he was certainly good in the 4th quarter. As I mentioned earlier in this game, I think this loss doesn't necessarily impact Ohio State as much as it does some of the other teams. Ohio State is still probably going to make the playoffs, but this pushes one of those bubble teams like Duke, Oklahoma, Clemson, somebody like that. It pushes one of those teams out. So this win really shakes up the rest of the college football playoff. But USC deserved it, man. They balled out against a great Ohio State team, and they are joining Virginia Tech along with Middle Tennessee State and Florida in the college football playoff officially. Let's go to the Big 12 championship game now between Cincinnati and Baylor. I don't think either of these teams are good enough to get an at-large spot. So basically, the winner's going to the playoff, and the loser, probably not. Especially if Baylor wins. Cincinnati's certainly not good enough to get one of those at-large spots. But I do think Cincinnati has what it takes to hang with Baylor. The Bearcats went 9-3 this year. They were really, really impressive. They don't have many bad losses, led by senior quarterback Seth Maddox, who was one of the best players at the quarterback position in the Big 12. They've got weapons on offense, and they've got one of the best defenses in the conference. They've got good pass rushers. They've got great players in the secondary, in particular junior cornerback Melly Golden, who's going to be a first-round pick most likely in next year's draft. As we look at Cincinnati's schedule, they have played very consistent football recently. Since Week 7, in which Cincinnati lost to a really good Duke team by only 3, the Bearcats have been very solid. Their offense has really improved throughout the season, and other than a late-season hiccup against Iowa State, they've been very, very good. As for Baylor, they've been the best team in the conference this year, but my concern with them is they're another run-first team who relies on the ground a little bit too much to where they don't have a very multi-dimensional offense, very similar to Navy. So I'm a little bit worried that Baylor could have the same fate that Navy does. Now, I don't think Cincinnati's as good of a team as Virginia Tech, so Baylor does have that going for them. But even so, I'm not sure if Baylor is equipped to win some of these big games down the stretch because they don't have the ability to throw the ball. And against a team like Cincinnati, you're going to need to be able to air it out in a possible offensive shootout. Baylor is a great defensive team. They get more sacks than just about anybody. And running back Dontavius Brown is a monster. Baylor is third in rushing yards per game, but again, their pass game does concern me, despite the fact that they have one of the most talented quarterbacks in the country in Forrest Holloway. He's got the strongest arm in college football, but he just doesn't really know how to use it. In the pick'em, everybody seems to really like Baylor as they get around 77% of the vote. I could really see Cincinnati making this a close game, even though Baylor's a little bit better defensively, and they've got the best player on the field with Dontavius Brown. On second down, Maddox loses it, and Baylor quickly forces a turnover on the strip sack. As I said earlier, Baylor's pass rush is dominant. They are amongst Power 5 teams second in sacks, only behind Washington, who we're going to see a little bit later today. The Bears are going to look to punch it in, but they cannot on third down as Dontavius Brown only gains 2. Cincinnati needs to take a book out of Virginia Tech's playbook. Virginia Tech keyed in on Navy's option offense. Since he's going to need to do the same, now trailing 3-0 after a Baylor field goal. Maddox connects downfield, a great pass over to Zane Stone, who gets around 28 yards. Cincinnati would not do a whole lot the rest of the drive, so they would tack on a field goal and tie the game up at 3. And then on their following drive, Cincinnati would add another field goal, so they would take their first lead of the game here against Baylor, assuming the kick is good, which it is. So the Bearcats now lead 6-3 here in the second quarter. Both offenses have been pretty underwhelming so far. Baylor's had a hard time running the ball. Cincinnati has not been able to find the end zone yet, but they are close. It's a 3rd and goal from around the 6-yard line here for the Bearcats with an opportunity to give themselves a pretty big lead. It's a screen for Dorsey, the backup running back, and he is in for a score. And it looks like Cincinnati has themselves in control. They lead 13-3. Baylor's offense has not been good. They have not been able to run the ball. Cincinnati has keyed in on Dontavius Brown, and he has struggled. Offensively, Cincinnati's now really starting to find a rhythm. Maddox gets his second passing touchdown of the game over to Zane Stone. And now this looks like a blowout, 20-3. Baylor is having the exact same fate that Navy does, and this game could get ugly if they don't figure things out quick. There you go. A big touchdown for Baylor at the end of the half. Forrest Holloway, the quarterback, has a great arm. He just doesn't consistently show it, but he did on that play, connecting with Walton Moran, making it 20-10. Cincinnati is still in control, but that last touchdown was a huge play to really put Baylor back in it, and we'll see if the Bears can make it a game. 3rd and 12. Holloway with another deep ball for Walton Moran. This playbook is not a very pass-friendly playbook, so Baylor's got to let Forrest Holloway cook. The Bears would kick a field goal. It's now 20-13 and only a one-possession game. Cincinnati still has the lead, but Baylor's creeping back into it. We'll see what Cincinnati can do here with good field position as Maddox throws a screen on third down to the junior running back Damon Green, who only gets 2. Good stop by Baylor. However, Cincinnati is still in field goal range, and here in the fourth quarter, they would make it a 2-score game. Baylor has to score a touchdown on this drive, and they will. Danny Frazier, the backup running back, does a great job of shrugging off tacklers. This was once a 17-point game. Now it's only a 3-point game. Baylor still has to get a stop, though. Despite having the momentum, they don't have the lead. 3rd and 11 here for the Bearcats. Seth Maddox looks to throw it under pressure. Takes a shot downfield, and it's broken up. Alan Rodgers got a hand on it, and Baylor can tie or take the lead here on this upcoming offensive possession. They would march all the way into the red zone. It's a 3rd and goal for Baylor with under a minute to go. Forrest Holloway would go short, and it would only go for a gain of a yard, and for whatever reason, Baylor called a timeout. I don't know why. They should have just chewed the clock and kicked the field goal, but instead they'll call the timeout, kick the field goal, and tie the game. But now Cincinnati has time to drive down the field and look to tie the game before overtime. On 2nd down, Maddox looks to throw it downfield, and he is intercepted! A huge turnover! Mickey Stoll picks it off, and it looks like this game is going to overtime. We've already had one OT thriller today in the American Conference Championship with Middle Tennessee State beating UAB. Here's the first possession of overtime. Cincinnati starts with the ball. The tight end, Ahmed Muhammad, is in motion as Maddox, under a ton of pressure, connects with Talon Savage for the touchdown, and Cincinnati takes the lead 30-23. Baylor's got to score a touchdown to keep this game alive. On 1st down, Maddox goes for the screen. It's caught by the big running back, Dontavius Brown, who takes it in himself. This game is tied up and headed into a double overtime. Baylor would start with the ball. Their offense didn't do a whole lot, so they're going to have to settle for a field goal. The kick is good, but now Cincinnati can win the game with a touchdown. Baylor's got to get a stop here, and ultimately they would. Cincinnati would have to settle for a field goal, and we are now headed to a triple overtime. When you score a touchdown in triple overtime, you have to go for 2. That's the rule in college football, so we'll see if that plays into effect here. On 1st down, Maddox connects a strike, and it's caught for a score, and thus Cincinnati is up by 6. It's Savage who makes the play. So, since he's going to try to make it an 8-point game, as Maddox's 2-point try is broken up and incomplete. So Baylor gets the stop. A touchdown ties it. Touchdown and a 2-point conversion wins it. They get part 1 of the equation, a touchdown on the screen to Matt Conley, the tight end. So either we're going to a 4th overtime or Baylor can win it right here on the 2-point conversion. For the conference championship, it's a handoff up the middle, and Cincy gets the stop. Linebacker Chip Billings, the All-American, saves the season for Cincinnati. Going into overtime number 4, Dontavius Brown scores a touchdown for Baylor. They're back up now by 6. They failed their last 2-point conversion. They're going to hand it off to Brown, and he is stopped again. That was Chip Billings who made the tackle once more. So Cincinnati trails by 6, but they've got a 4th down with the season on the line. Maddox looks to throw it, and it is incomplete. Baylor gets the stop. They win, and Baylor is going to the college football playoff in what ends up being a miraculous football game. The Big 12 championship goes to 4 overtimes, but it's Baylor who at one point trailed 20-3, wins this game, and goes to the college football playoff. This was a wild football game, but Baylor ends up surviving. What Baylor did in the second half was they adapted their offense. They recognized the ground game was not working, so unlike Navy in the ACC championship game, they flipped the playbook. Let Forrest cook, and boy did he cook all right. The best game of Forrest Holloway's career. Baylor showed they can win even when Dontavius Brown struggles, and Brown did not have a good game for his standards. So this game really gives me a lot of optimism for Baylor, and maybe they are not like Notre Dame from last year and Navy this year in the sense that they can adapt their offense. Got to give Cincinnati a lot of credit. They played really well. Seth Maddox is a phenomenal quarterback, and he was quite good in this game. Cincinnati led 20-3. They should have won, and they should have made it to the playoff, but they could not hold on. and thus it's Baylor representing the Big 12. So we've got 5 tickets punched for the college football playoff, and we're going to punch one more today in the Pac-12 championship between Washington and Cal. This is a rematch of last year's Pac-12 conference championship game where Washington was the heavy favorite, and Washington led big. At one point, they were up, I want to say, 24-6 going into the fourth quarter. Cal stormed back. They scored 28 points in the fourth quarter, and they won that game, not only making the playoffs, but they dominated Notre Dame in the first round. This year, Cal is the favorite, but they've got a lot of question marks here because their starting quarterback, Rufus Motley, who's been out all season, is questionable to play. Rufus Motley is the guy they've designed their offense around. He's a scrambler. This is a run-first option-styled offense. Their backup quarterback, Marquise Harris, does not really fit the system. However, he played so well in relief of Rufus Motley. Cal changed and adapted their offensive system to fit their new quarterback, and he was incredible, completing 70% of his passes, only throwing 1 interception. Cal is still a run-first team. They've got multiple great running backs, but their ability to adapt their offense to their backup quarterback is why they made it here, and their backup quarterback obviously played great. Their defense is very good, too. And this entire team has such a great story. If you remember back in week 2, Cal's first game of the year, they lost to FCS Northwest. And since then, they have not lost. Cal opened up the year ranked number 13. After their loss to the FCS team, they fell out of the polls, and they have spent the entire season trying to climb back in. They had to do so with a quarterback injury. Rufus Motley got hurt in week 4 against Washington, which led to Marquise Harris coming into the game. And that might have been the best thing to happen to this team because Rufus Motley is a good player, but Marquise Harris looks like a great player. However, with Rufus Motley questionable to play, there's a chance that he is healthy enough. So if he is, do you go with him or do you go with Marquise Harris? It's going to be an interesting dilemma for Cal as they look to get back to the playoff for a second straight season. As for Washington, they finished the season off really strong. They have won 9 consecutive games and find themselves at a record of 10-2. I think this Washington team is better than their squad last year, despite the fact that last year they were the favorite in the conference championship, and this year they are the underdog. They have arguably the best pass rush in the entire country. Their only losses are against a good Stanford team, and then Cal, back in week 5. They have some good wins, including beating Virginia Tech, which now in hindsight, at the time, that didn't seem like a big deal, but Virginia Tech has obviously proven themselves to be a great team. Washington also has a higher point differential. The two teams average the exact same amount of offensive points per game, but Washington's scoring defense is a little bit better. So I think this is the most evenly matched conference championship game of the day. I think these two teams, in terms of talent, are pretty much neck and neck, along with the storyline of it being a rematch from last year's unbelievable conference championship. There's a reason why I saved this game for last. Cal is getting 2/3% of the vote, but I think that kind of discredits how good Washington is, and I really could see this game going either way. As for the Cal quarterback situation, Rufus Motley has been declared out today, and Marquise Harris will start once again. Motley is listed higher on the depth chart, and his injury status is still technically listed as questionable, but it was Marquise Harris who came onto the field for the offense. I think this is the right move for Cal, regardless if Motley is healthy or not. Marquise Harris has played so well this year, and he's been better than Rufus Motley, so I don't think there's a reason to make a switch at the quarterback position. I think the bigger question with Cal is who's going to be the starter next season, because I think for the rest of the way this year, and if they make the college football playoff, it's going to be Marquise Harris at quarterback for the Cal Golden Bears. Washington does have an early 3rd and inches. We'll see if their offense can look to set the tone to start this game, just like last year, but unlike last year, they're going to have to not blow it. Torque Raleigh makes the play, gets 22. Washington would kick a field goal. They lead 3-0. Here's the Cal offense as it's a handoff to the backup running back, Tim Howard, who makes a nice play, weaving through defenders, and he gets around 18 yards. Cal looking to get back to the line of scrimmage quickly. They want to run a fast-paced, high-tempoed offense. They've obviously got a really good quarterback now who can throw the ball, but this is still a run, ground, and pound football team, showing it on this drive as Tim Howard punches it in to put Cal ahead 7-3. A good start for the Golden Bear offense as Howard puts them ahead early. Cal gets it back here on their following possession. 3rd and 9. Marquise Harris under pressure takes a shot downfield, and it is caught by Self 2, who gets it all the way to the 1. What a throw by Marquise Harris. I mean, this guy's got an incredible arm. And now Cal's going to look to punch it in. Can they take a 2-score lead here? 1st and goal from the 1. Hustling back to the line of scrimmage. They know Washington's defense is tired, and they're taking full advantage. Harrison Myers gets the touchdown for Cal, and it is now 14-3. So unlike last year, it's Cal who is really playing well early in this game, trying to win their 12th consecutive ball game. Washington's offense had a pretty good first drive, but since then it has gone downhill. On 3rd and 9, Kai Suggs-Gardner is sacked by Marcus Clayton, the big defensive tackle who played really well last year in the playoff for Cal in the 2 games that they had, and Cal's got a real shot to turn this one into a blowout. On 2nd and 11, Harris goes downfield. It's caught by Eberle Keltstan, who breaks a tackle into open space, and he gets a 43-yard touchdown. Cal looks incredible. They lead 21-3. Cal knows from last year not to get too excited. Washington had a big lead in the Pac-12 championship last year and blew it, so Cal knows to keep the pedal to the metal. But right now, these look like 2 completely different teams. And as I said, I thought this was going to be the most evenly matched game of the day. On Cal's following possession, Marquise Harris would punch it in for a score. And the Golden Bears extend their lead even more, as it is now 28-3. That lead has never been blown before. Well, I think it's fair to say it won't be blown today if Cal keeps playing like this, because they don't only look like the best team in this game, but they look like they could legitimately win the national championship. Kai Suggs-Gardner sacked again. Cal's pass rush playing really well. This time it's Lorenzo Nujolis who brings him down. Washington's offense would do nothing. They would have to punt it. Cal would march down the field late in the first half looking to up their lead even more, and they would. Tim Howard gets his 2nd touchdown of the game. Cal is going to take a 35-3 lead going into half. They look so impressive right now and look like they could beat anybody in the college football playoff. And inversely, Washington does not look like they belong on the same field, as the Huskies are just playing horribly on both sides of the ball. The second half was not very interesting. There was only 1 touchdown, a late score here from the Huskies with 20 seconds left on the clock. But that's not going to do anything other than make the score slightly not as bad. Cal wins in dominant fashion, 41-13. They win their 12th consecutive game and are going back to the college football playoff for a 2nd consecutive season. This was a complete blowout. Cal looks so good today. Marquise Harris appears to be the real deal. And again, there's no reason for Cal not to continue to start him in the college football playoff. Along with the offense, the defense was also spectacular. Cal has so many talented players in the front 7. Their secondary is very good as well. And they completely dominated the Washington offense, who did not score a touchdown until 20 seconds left in the game. Kai Suggs-Gardner made some good throws, but ultimately these looked like 2 completely different teams on 2 completely different playing fields. Washington now has 3 losses, along with playing in a questionable Pac-12. I don't think the Huskies have a great argument for getting an at-large bid, so their best chance of getting in was with a win today, and obviously they did not win. So that wraps up Conference Championship Week. We had some surprising results like Cal completely dominating and Virginia Tech blowing out Navy. We had some crazy finishes with Baylor and Cincinnati going into quadruple overtime and Middle Tennessee State needing a game-time touchdown at the buzzer to survive against UAB. So next episode, we will introduce the voting for the college football playoff. I'm going to run down everybody's resume, not just the teams fighting for one of the at-large spots, but also the teams who clinched today, because we have to seed those teams as well. And along with that, we'll go over some of the resumes for some of the top players up for the Big Time Awards, including the Heisman Trophy. So that's going to wrap up the episode. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.